This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
So, Espo, are the Suns a play-in team?
Right now, yeah. As you look at the standings, I tend to believe that they will be the 6th seed, but it'll have more to do with those teams around them and what goes on with them than what they are able to do on the court. They've got a lot of opportunity because they play some of these teams that are right there in the mix with them. The Kings, New Orleans, they have an opportunity here before the end of the season. They've got 4 easier games over the next week that can really help them stack some wins and keep them out of the play-in. But I'll say this, my faith is a little less than it was a week or two ago that they won't be a play-in team.
Okay, so was this road trip then about just surviving and getting to the playoffs? Because the Boston and the Milwaukee losses have left many of us saying, I think we can go ahead and make our vacation plans in June.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't have been about just surviving and making the playoffs. It should have been about making a statement, because all we've heard is, oh, the big three just needs time. They need to be healthy. Well, they crossed the 500-minute mark playing together. They've been healthy now for a week or two consistently here. I think we're at the time that it's, to put it somewhat crassly, it's put up or shut up time. And I really thought the Celtics and Milwaukee games would be those moments for this team. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. It wasn't. They had too many lapses defensively. At times they looked disinterested, and they just don't seem like they're ready for prime time at this point. And, the optimists will say, well, they'll turn it on for the playoffs, but we're about to run off the runway, right? We're in a Boeing situation here. The plane ain't doing too well, all right? And at some point, you're not just going to be able to flip the switch and all of a sudden become an otherworldly team. We've only seen it happen once or twice in NBA history, and I've seen nothing to suggest that this team's going to do it.
Does the addition of point guard in his mid-30s help?
No, because the point guard you added isn't a true point guard. He's a score-first guard that has always been known as a guy that can create for himself. It's not a guy that's going to pass the rock. Isaiah Thomas, even in his Sacramento days and his Boston days and his cup of coffee here in Phoenix, was never known as a playmaker. So anybody that's trying to sell you on the thought that, oh, the Suns finally got their true point guard, I got some property in Yuma that's beachfront to sell you as well.
Well, what if we just went out and got Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe as well? Would that work?
It worked so well the first time. Why not try it again? Goran's enjoying retirement. Bledsoe's playing, I believe, in China. Yeah, why not? Bring the band back together, because, that team won 48 and didn't make the playoffs. So why not,
John Lure. Who are some other guys from that team? That makes for a terrible podcast.
Mirza Teletovic.
Yeah, Mirza. Yes. There was a Brandon Wright and a Brendan Wright, I think.
PJ Tucker.
I'll take him back. I'll take him back for sure. What do you feel like isn't working with this team right now, like specifically?
Well, obviously, 3-point defending. They seem to go into drop coverage and care more about defending the paint than closing out on 3-point shooters. Before Sunday's game, I saw a stat that when it came to 3-point opponents or opponents shooting 3-pointers, they're either wide open or open, according to the analytics, 89% of the time. This is an NBA that's predicated on 3-point shooting. And if you're leaving opponents that open, there's a reason why it feels like teams are having historic performances or individuals are having otherworldly games against you. It's because you're not guarding the fundamental shot in the game. I'd rather give up shots in the lane than give up those easy 3-pointers that we've seen. And that's the unfortunate truth about this team right now, is they're just giving up too many outside shots, and unless the defense winds up showing up and figuring out how to not do that, how to not give up 140 points to these good opponents, you're just not going to be able to win. And then on top of it, if you're not getting performances from Beal, Booker, and KD that fit their resume, you're not going to win either, because this team's constructed around those three guys. And if they're not doing it, nobody else is riding into the rescue.
Well, and do you think we'll see something drastically different defensively on Wednesday against the Sixers?
I mean, I would hope so, but I don't know. You would think that, we're almost 70 games into the season. You would have thought that the adjustments would have been made before. And I can't imagine that Frank Vogel, who's a defensive-minded coach, hasn't attempted to make these changes, right? But I haven't seen it happen. So you got to wonder, is it the scheme? Is it the players not executing the scheme? Is it somewhere in between? And if it hasn't been fixed by now, why hasn't it? And those are big questions that I don't know we're going to have answers to.
So is it realistic to think here that this team can rip off some wins and turn the page as talented as they are?
Yes. I mean, whenever you have three guys in that are top 40 talents in the league, and arguably two that are top 10, you should be able to figure out how to put together a win streak. Now, it sounds good on paper. We haven't seen it yet this year, but when you look at, like I mentioned, the schedule this week, I mean, you're playing the Spurs twice. You got the Hawks. You've got a wounded 76ers team. You should be able to stack up wins, but you would have said the same thing about, you should have had a better shot against a depleted Milwaukee team, or, you should have played better against a Cavs team that was missing a lot of guys, or you should have played better earlier in the year in the two games that you lost to the Spurs. So consistently inconsistent is the theme this year. So, yeah, these 4 games look like you should be able to rattle them off and be riding high on a win streak, but I haven't seen it yet this year.
And I mean, the longer this goes on, the more I think, man, we might not see it, and we might be headed for a play-in exit or a first-round exit. What has been the best game you've seen them put together so far this year, in your opinion?
Probably that first Minnesota win where they crushed Minnesota, a team that's been towards the top of the West all year. I mean, they had a pretty good game against New Orleans as well, but it's been few and far between that we've seen them put together a quality 4 quarters, right? This team has the 5th worst point differential in NBA history in 4th quarters. I mean, that's problematic, and we've seen it time and time again. Are they capable of it? I believe they are. And I still think there's a chance that we see it all come together, that something clicks. And maybe this group is just, as my friend and your friend Flex from Jersey would say, built for the playoffs and not built for the regular season. And maybe that's just the case. Maybe these games, well, we take them as fans and as those covering it extremely seriously in the regular season, because we have to make 82 of them compelling. Maybe they just don't feel that same way, and maybe they will turn it on when the lights get the brightest. But that's a big if, and if I were them, I'd much rather want to go in on a winning streak than just being like, hey, when we know who we're playing, we'll match up well and we'll make the adjustments then.
Don't they know we have a show every day?
No, this is not for the content, Mark. They're doing it for the ring and the contract. We're doing it for the content, and I think that sometimes, fans and us alike, I think sometimes we forget that, right? Because we have to be so entrenched every day. I mean, you're doing shows every day. I'm doing an hour just on this team, and I think sometimes we forget that. Maybe sometimes they ebb and flow in the importance of these games, but we're in March. It's the middle of March. April's right around the corner, and you can see the playoffs on the horizon. If there was ever a time to lock in and set that aside, it'd be now, and it hopefully put all of us talking heads in a much better mood and much more excited for what's to come in April, May, and hopefully June.
Yes, this talking head is in a bad mood, but that's a lot of different things going on right now, including every sport in the world happening within a 20-minute radius of here and trying to get it all covered and having a great time. I'm complaining. I'm not trying to complain. I'm just busy, and I love it. Okay, so they get in the play-in tournament. Can they make a run like the Miami Heat? Are you concerned about them getting in the playoff tournament, or is there not really anything to be concerned about?
I mean, if we're talking play-in, there's always a concern because 2 missteps and you're out. You're heading home. For every one Miami, there's a million other teams that are just gonna flame out and not go anywhere in the play-in. Because look, 4 teams enter, 2 teams leave, which means 2 teams are going to be immensely disappointed. And when you look at it right now, there's a chance that the Mavs, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Warriors. Some people would have argued that could have been the top 4 in the West this year early on. And now it may be 4 teams fighting for 2 spots and essentially 2 games to do it in. I don't feel very confident in that regardless of who the team is because the odds become so slim and the margin for error is even tinier. So that concerns me. That's why the 6th seed's so important. Sure, you're not getting a home court, but you're also getting a week to prep knowing who you're playing, and you don't have to battle for your life against these quality opponents with superstars on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, and so then I think it can be said too for going into that having a little head start because you have been battling, but I think with an aging roster, yeah, it doesn't bode as well. Maybe with the Heat last year, staying healthy and they just kind of got a head start and sharpened their sword by coming out of the play-in tournament. As far as Isaiah Thomas goes, how much do you think we'll see him? How much would you like to see him here down the stretch running the show, and how much do you think he could kind of help the floor get organized?
Yeah, I think we'll see him about as much as we've seen the shadow GM Isaiah Thomas show up. I don't know where the minutes, significant minutes, are going to come from. Right, Saban Lee's fallen out of the rotation, so it's not as if you have those minutes. Maybe David Roddy's minutes, but it makes you have to be a little strange with what you're doing roster wise. Does it come at Eric Gordon's expense? I'm trying to figure out where you find minutes for Isaiah Thomas, and if this is anything more than we need a 15th guy on the roster that if injury strikes we can turn to, because if Eric Gordon has to go into the starting lineup due to an injury, or Royce O'Neal, and then you're looking for a stopgap, maybe that's Isaiah Thomas. I think he'll get a handful of minutes, but anybody expecting major minutes, I think might be or likely will be disappointed, because that's just not who Isaiah Thomas is right now. I talked to somebody that actually worked with him in his G League stint in Utah, and he said, hey, the guy can still score. He's been a very good locker room guy for the week we've had him here. But what I think stands out is the fact that he understands what his role is at this point in his career. And I think that's important. You don't want a guy coming in thinking he's going to crack your top, 6 or 7 in your rotation in this situation and being disappointed in it. If he understands what it is, I think we'll see some minutes, but I don't think you're going to see anything major with him.
Spring break, what are your plans? You go down to Mexico? What's the big plan?
I will be covering the Suns team all spring break. It's actually week 2 for my kid already.
The old
in
2-weeker.
Spring break. So so I drop her off at art camp and then I go right into work. That's what my spring break entails.
Art camp, that's a good one. Yeah.
I take it back. I am going to see Bruce Springsteen tomorrow night because I'm an old man at heart. So I am doing that. That's part of my spring break fun.
You sing along?
Of course.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite Boss sing along song?
Oh, I mean,
Nebraska.
I'm cliche. I love Thunder Road, like Born to Run. Rosalita's a fun one to sing. There's all sorts of them. If he does Growing Up, I love that song. There's a lot. There's anything from the river. Like I could go on and on.
You think he'll grab Courtney Cox out of the crowd and start dancing with her in the dark?
I think they both might break a hip at this point. So.
That's the most old man joke ever. If we have the younger listeners on the podcast, they won't get it. And just listening to two grouchy guys talk about their basketball team who can't get it together here. Well, hey, great stuff. Where can we find you this week?
Outside of being at the Springsteen concert, you can find me over at PHNX Sports on YouTube or gophnx.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Espo.
Awesome. Well, have a great evening and keep on rocking.
Thank you, sir.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.